Well, how does unemployment go up? And so do jobs. I don't know. The whole thing gets pretty confusing, and I'm delighted to have with us today perhaps somebody you've already caught on the media. You've seen him around. He writes books. He's a commentator, and he's a very popular media guest on all the leading outlets. Craig Smith is with us today. We're going to talk about the jobs report paradox and all of the crazy things that go on with all of this. He's a pro in that area, and he also advises a lot of folks on the economy and how to hedge themselves against some of these issues. Craig, what a delight to have you, sir.
Well, thank you, Perry. It's good to be with you.
Where are you?
I'm in Paradise Valley, Arizona today.
Well, now there's a reason they call it paradise this time of year.
Yeah, it's about 80 degrees outside, crystal clear blue skies. It should be a high of about 86, 87 today, so we got a lovely day going here.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Craig, this has been an amazing time to watch these numbers. Here in Oregon, in some areas, we're still, depending on the counties, we could be as high as 11% in some areas. The jobs number for the United States came in at 7.9. Is that a true number?
Well, it depends upon how you count, Perry. I guess if you ask the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is a real number. We did create 171,000 private sector jobs last month. However, we had to do a lot of revisions for the month prior because we left a lot of data out. Yes, 171,000 jobs actually made the unemployment rate tick up 0.1% because the month before the data wasn't, in my opinion, accurate. But I think the bigger question is, Perry, and most people feel this, we know unemployment is high. There's been no president that's gotten a second term with higher than 7.4% unemployment. That's why I'm surprised this race is so close. But I also think it's because we've changed the rules quite a bit. People forget that when President Obama a couple months ago relaxed the workfare laws, a lot of people fell off the unemployment rolls. If you get disability nowadays, you're taken off the unemployment numbers. If you get a scholarship to go to a junior college, you get taken off the unemployment rolls. If you stop looking for work for 4 weeks or more, you get taken out of the number. If you were to count the unemployment rate, Perry, the way that we did during the Carter years, we'd have 14.9% unemployment. And I think if you check with the normal Americans out there, they'd say that's probably the real rate.
14.9%. That kind of certainly validates the other number that we're hearing, the 23 million that are unemployed.
Yeah, that's right. We're short about 9 million jobs of where we should be in a typical recovery. You know, we hear all the time that we've created 5 million jobs, and that's terrific. But this is the most anemic recovery we have on the books. And as we talk about in our book, The Great Debasement, this is nothing that wasn't predictable, Perry. In 1912, when we hired Woodrow Wilson to be our president, we made a very fundamental shift in America. We started becoming a progressive, if you will, or a liberal nation. And that birthed the Federal Reserve in 1913 and the federal income tax laws of 1913. And here we are 100 years later. And as we've expanded the welfare state, the cradle-to-grave mentality, and came off the gold standard in 1971, we've seen a devaluation of the currency, very similar to what we saw in the Athenian empires, or the days of the Romans, or the Ottoman Empire, or the British Empire. This is nothing new, and it's very predictable. And that's why, quite frankly, it's sad to say that it really doesn't matter if it's Mr. Obama or Mr. Romney come tomorrow night. We're going to continue to have this debasement. It may slow somewhat under Governor Romney, President Romney, but it's not going to end, Perry. And that's why we appreciate doing programs like this with Dove TV, because the average consumer doesn't understand it. These numbers make your eyes glaze over. But I'm convinced if the American people are given the information, they'll make proper decisions going forward.
All right, so I want to come to a lot what you just said there, but briefly, are we sliding back into recession with these numbers ticking back up?
Yes, I made mention of it on a national TV show on the Fox News channel 2 months ago that we are in a recession. We don't want to admit it. Now, keep in mind, you only know you're in a recession after you've been in it for a while, and subsequently the other way. You never know you're out of it until many months afterwards.
Right.
But if you look at the real rate of inflation and you look at the rate of growth, even if you look at the government inflation number, you adjust for inflation, we're running negative numbers. And my big concern now is if we hit the fiscal cliff in January 2013, what could be a mild and shallow recession could be a very, very deep recession, or maybe even a moderate depression, believe it or not. This time, however, it won't be a deflationary depression. It'll be an inflationary depression similar to what we saw 79, 80. And I don't think it's going to be very good for the average American.
Now, I don't like doing this, and I don't suppose you do either, but if we can be hypothetical just for a moment, if if Governor Romney becomes president-elect, some people say that a lot of the sideline dollars that business has will come flooding back into the workplace. That's going to boost things. But yet, he has to do some very hard decision making and cutting, and his first 8 months could be miserable and even cause the numbers to go higher.
Well, I agree with you on the pent-up demand that's sitting on the sidelines. There's about $3 trillion worth of CapEx, capital expenditures, on behalf of corporations that would clearly come into the market when they saw some certainty. I do think he's going to have a very difficult time with some of the sequestration, which, by the way, is law. Those are going to be $1.2 trillion worth of cuts that are going to have to go into effect. I hope we don't gut our military in the process. But hopefully Governor Romney can come up with a more, if you will, stable way of doing this. But we have to grow this economy. And like we said in the Great Debasement, we've talked about the long-term solution to these deficits are growing the economy. We've got to stop looking at a single pie, trying to divide it out. We need to make more pies and grow the current pie.
Where can people get a copy of your book?
Well, they can go to thegreatdebasement.com, or I have some good news. Our publisher, because we just launched last week, gave me a couple hundred copies. So if you're watching Dove TV, if you call 800-630-1494, it's a small publisher, so you just have to leave your name and phone number. They'll contact you, and they'll actually send you a book. They pay the postage, the whole 9 yards, up to 200 copies. So I'd suggest you either go to Amazon and pay for it, or for a short period, if you mention you've been watching on Dove TV, just call 800-630-1494, and the publisher will send you a copy, absolutely no charge.
Greg, thank you for that offer. Wow, generous of you, very, very much. So, all the financial advice do you give? What are you telling people to do these days?
Well, number one, diversify and not depend on the federal government. I mean, you have to understand, Perry, our programs are going bankrupt. Whether the government wants to tell you like less is up to them, but it's just not true. The math doesn't play out. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're all changing and changing rapidly. On a personal note, I tell people to diversify. Own a portion of stocks, a portion of bonds, portion in real estate, portion in cash, portion in gold. Be well diversified, and don't expect the federal government to bail you out, because they may be good in hurricane relief, but they're horrible in financial relief.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any hope? Can we get out of this mess?
Yeah, I do. The good news is, look, the dollar is going to continue to drop long term, which some could argue makes us more competitive internationally. So I suppose you could argue that a lower dollar does have a positive effect. And if you're protected against it by, say, gold or real estate, you really won't feel it as an American. Long term, I am optimistic, and let me tell you why. I think we've seen so much partisan wrangling in Washington, D.C. We are going to demand the politicians to get together, or we're going to start replacing people every 2 years in the Congress, 4 years in the White House, and 6 years in the Senate. So I am positive, Perry. I think the average American has had enough, and it's time for us to get about the business of turning this country around. Think about it. After 9/11, we were united. Going in the Second World War, we were a united nation. And it's a shame that it takes tragedies like that to get us united. But I'm very confident about the future. And that's why, if you're a young person, don't worry about tomorrow. I remember when I was a kid, we hid under the desks for civil defense drill, thinking the end of the world was coming. Right. We're still here, and we're going to be here for many years to come.
What was this administration thinking by giving away all this money?
You know, Perry, I guess I could say it was crony capitalism. I guess I could say there were many favors that were being paid. $90 billion went to failed solar companies and so on and so forth. But it's part of politics. You know, look, and this isn't a Democrat-Republican thing. President Bush did it when he was in term. President Clinton, I mean, it goes back time immemorial. But I think recently what we've seen is Mr. Obama, I'm not one of these believers who think he's out trying to destroy America. I really think he wants to fundamentally change America, and he believes that he's good. He thinks that it will be a better America if we're a smaller America, less involved in the world, and just taking care of things at home. Now, that may sound good from the surface, but when you live in a combined world like we have today, geopolitically, it's suicide. And that's why I think Mr. Obama's intentions may be good, but his ideology leads us down a terrible path that will take many years to recover from, especially if he gets another 4 years.
Now, I realize there's abuses everywhere, and capitalism certainly no excuse. But on the other hand, if it isn't for capitalism, we're nothing.
Absolutely. You know, that's the beauty of America, Perry. Free markets with constitutional republic government has been the envy of the world. Look at this nation. I mean, yes, after the Second World War, the rest of the world was bombed out and we weren't, so we were competitive. But we still have the greatest market forces in the world. We got the greatest capital markets, the greatest technological markets. We have the greatest workforce in the history of the world, more productive than any workforce in the world. If we can just get the synergy going between those three factions again, the best years of this country could lay ahead, especially with the technological boom that we see happening. So I'm very positive about the future, but you just hit the key. Capitalism works, Perry. Yeah. It works, it works, it works, and we should not abandon it.
Well, Craig, you're a delight to have. Thank you for your time. I value it greatly. I know you're a busy person. We'll get you back, and let's see what things look like in about 30 days from now, and I have you come back and make some commentary on that, okay?
Love to do it. Thanks for having me, Perry.
And again, thank you for your generous offer. If you want to get a copy of his book, dial 1-800-630-1454, and you'll get a free copy.
1494.
1494. Thank you.
Yeah.
630-1490. All right. Thanks, Craig. See you next time.
Thank you.